The crash in Sector Theta 9. The sky over Moonbase Echo 7 was always dark. The stars above were cold and quiet. Jackson Cole, a human engineer, had worked alone here for almost 2 years. He fixed old machines, cleaned dust filters, and talked to himself more than anyone else. Life was simple, quiet, and a little lonely. But that night, something changed. An alarm beeped loudly on Jackson's monitor. He rushed to the screen. A ship had just crashed in Sector Theta 9, far outside the safe zone. The system showed heat signatures, one life form still alive. The ship was not human, it was alien. Jackson stared at the blinking red dot on his screen. He had strict orders: never leave the base alone, never enter unknown zones, and never make contact with alien tech. He grabbed his jacket. "I'm going," he said to no one. "If someone's out there, they need help." The black sands of Theta 9 were harsh. The wind screamed across the dunes, and Jackson's boots sank deep into the dust. His small rover shook from the storm, but he didn't stop. After an hour, he saw the wreck, half buried in sand, metal twisted like paper, glowing with blue light. Smoke filled the air. Parts of the ship were on fire. He ran to the open hatch and peered inside. That's when he saw her. Lying among broken wires and shattered glass was a woman, an alien woman. She was tall, slim, and her skin shimmered like silver. Her clothes were torn, and she bled a bright, glowing blue from a wound on her side. Her eyes were closed. She was barely breathing. Jackson's heart pounded. He had never seen an alien this close, but she looked peaceful. Hurt, but peaceful, and so very human in that moment of weakness. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Hang in there." Lifting her was hard. Her body felt light but warm, like heat wrapped in silk. He carried her to the rover, laying her across the seat. The glowing blood stained his hands, but he didn't care. He had to save her. Back at the base, he placed her on the medical bed and scanned her. The computer beeped in confusion. Unknown species. No match found. He cursed under his breath. "You've got to be kidding me." Still, he tried. He cleaned her wound, used healing gel, and adjusted the oxygen mix in the air. She didn't wake up, but her breathing became stronger. Hours passed. Jackson sat beside her, watching, waiting. He had questions. Who was she? Why was she alone? Why did her ship crash? But for now, none of that mattered. Suddenly, her hand moved. Jackson stood up quickly. Her eyes opened, bright purple, glowing slightly in the dark. She looked around, panicked. She spoke something in a soft, alien voice. The words were strange, beautiful, but full of fear. Her hand reached for her side. When she saw the bandage, she gasped. Then she looked at Jackson. He raised his hand slowly. "It's okay. I helped you. You crashed. You were hurt." She stared at him, breathing fast. "I'm human," he said softly. "My name is Jackson. You're safe now." For a moment, the room was silent. Then she whispered something back. One word. "Jackson." His eyes widened. "You understand me?" She nodded weakly, then collapsed back onto the bed. Jackson sighed in relief. "You're going to be okay." But just then, the base alarm went off again. Multiple unidentified ships entering orbit, Sector Theta 9. Jackson rushed to the console. The screen showed dark ships, sharp and fast, circling like wolves. "They found her," he whispered, "and they're not here to help." He looked back at the woman on the bed. She was still unconscious, unaware of the danger above. Jackson stood still for a moment. He had a choice to make. He could turn her over, call for help, follow orders, or he could protect her. He clenched his fists. "No one's taking you." He began locking down the base, preparing defenses, and gathering tools. The princess, whoever she was, had enemies, powerful ones, But now she had someone else too. A human. One who wouldn't run. One who would stand and fight. And that's how the story began. The royal blood secret. The quiet hum of the base had changed. It no longer felt like a lonely outpost lost in space. It felt like a war drum echoing before a storm. Jackson paced back and forth, checking scanners, sealing doors, double-checking power reserves. His hands moved on their own, but his mind stayed locked on the woman lying unconscious behind him. She was still weak, her breath slow but steady, her glowing blood seeping through the fresh bandages. The alien princess hadn't woken again since whispering his name. Still, something in her tone had stayed with him. She had spoken like someone important, like someone used to being obeyed. But now, she was helpless, and he, just a simple human engineer, was her only shield. Hours passed, and with every tick of the clock, danger crept closer. The ships above hadn't moved, but they hadn't left either. They waited, watched, like hunters circling a wounded animal. Jackson kept the lights dim and the heat low, hoping to hide his base from their scanners. But he knew it wouldn't last. They were just toying with him. Then a sudden hiss of air made him spin around. The medical door slid open, and there she was, standing, weak, trembling, but awake. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the soft light, and her eyes, those piercing, glowing violet eyes, met his with quiet fire. "You should be resting," he said, stepping closer. She looked around, confused, wary. "This is not my ship." "No, you crashed. I found you. You were bleeding. I tried to help." She looked down at her side, where the wound had once been. Her fingers touched the bandage, and her eyes widened as the tips of her nails burned a small hole in the fabric. The blue spark flared where her blood touched the synthetic cloth, melting it away like acid. "You shouldn't have touched me," she said suddenly, voice low and strained. "I didn't have a choice," Jackson replied. "You were dying." She stared at him a long time. Her breath was shallow, and her legs shook from the effort of standing. Yet her pride refused to let her fall. "Do you know who I am?" "No," he said honestly, "but I'm guessing you're someone important." She didn't answer right away. Then, finally, she spoke. "I am Saraya, first daughter of House Valfar, bearer of the flame thread, heir to the Thalvera Empire." Jackson blinked. "That's a lot of titles." "I am a princess," she said, then added, "or I was." He tilted his head. "Was?" She looked away. "There was a betrayal. My convoy was attacked. My ship's navigation was rerouted. Someone close to me wanted me dead." Jackson felt his chest tighten. "And now those same people are up there, circling this rock." Saraya nodded. "They will destroy everything to silence me. If they find me here, they will burn your base. They will kill you without question." Jackson gave a dry laugh. "Thanks for the warning. I must leave," she said, trying to step forward, but her knees buckled. Jackson rushed to catch her. She winced, but didn't pull away. Their eyes met again. He was close enough now to see her pupils shift, shaped like thin, vertical diamonds. She wasn't just from another world. She was from another kind of life altogether. Elegant, engineered, powerful, but now so fragile. "You can't go anywhere," he said. "Your body hasn't healed yet." "I must," she whispered. "If I stay, you will die." "Maybe," he said softly. "But if you go, you'll die alone." Again. She looked at him with something that wasn't pride. It wasn't fear either. It was something deeper, uncertainty. As if no one had ever tried to save her before. Not without expecting something in return. Suddenly, the console blared. A message flashed across the screen. "Unidentified probe approaching." 500 meters. Jackson ran to the panel and pulled up the camera feed. A sleek black drone hovered just above the sand, scanning the terrain. "They found us," he muttered. Saraya moved beside him, her face pale. That is a scout. They are testing the ground before they strike. I guess hiding time is over. Jackson turned and grabbed his tool belt. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained to fight alien wars. But somehow, it didn't matter. He had seen something in her eyes. Pain, strength, hope, something worth protecting. I'm staying, he said. So are you. She blinked. Why? Because you needed help, and I was here. For a long second, she said nothing. Then slowly, quietly, she sat down beside him. Your kind, she began, has always been considered weak by my people. Emotional, impulsive, illogical. And now, she looked him in the eye. Now I'm not so sure. Jackson smiled. The drone outside turned and flew off, but he knew it would return, with friends. The real storm was coming. But in that small room, under the glow of alien blood and human light, something rare began to form. Trust. The hunters close in. The night on Echo 7 never ended, but Jackson could feel it changing. The darkness wasn't peaceful anymore. It was full of eyes, the kind of silence that came just before a scream. The princess, Soraya, moved like a ghost across the room, her long silver hair flowing behind her as she studied every screen and sensor. Her glowing violet eyes never blinked when she stared at the enemy ships on the monitor. They were still there, floating in orbit like sharks, patient and cold. They had seen the drone scan. They knew she was alive. They were coming. Jackson sealed the base tight. Every door locked. Every code changed. He wasn't a soldier, but he knew how to make machines work. He turned lights into traps, pipes into weapons. He turned his home into a cage with sharp teeth. All the while, Soraya watched him with quiet awe. He moved fast, without fear. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't question why she was here. He had chosen to protect her, and that choice didn't change, not even when the enemy came closer. "What are you doing?" she asked once, when she found him wiring a heating coil into a pressure tank. He looked up, sweat on his brow. "Making a bomb, just in case they knock." She stared at the metal, then at him. "You are not like the other humans I've studied." "Yeah," he said. "I get that a lot." She didn't smile, but something softened in her face, like a wall had shifted a little. Later, they sat together in the control room, eating dried protein bars and drinking stale water. Jackson leaned back in his chair, eyes on the stars above. "So," he said between bites, "you're a princess, real royalty." She nodded slowly. "By birth and blood." "Do you miss it?" "I miss the stars. The quiet halls. My brother's voice when he laughed. I miss the feeling of purpose." "What happened to your brother?" Her eyes grew dark. "He's the one who betrayed me." Jackson froze, the bar halfway to his mouth. "He arranged the attack. My convoy was ambushed. The ship was meant to explode completely. No trace left. No witness. My death would clear the path for his rise. But something went wrong." She paused. "I survived. Barely." He said nothing, just watched her. She didn't cry, but she didn't have to. Her silence was louder than tears. Outside, the sensors beeped again. A pod had landed on the far ridge. It was small, scout-sized, but deadly. Inside, Jackson knew, would be soldiers. Real ones, not like him. He stood up. Time to work. They watched the screen together. The figures stepped into the camera's view. Tall, dark-armored, faces hidden behind silver masks. They moved like wolves, smooth and careful. One of them bent down and touched the sand, the trail left by the drone. They were following it straight toward the base. "We have less than an hour," Soraya said calmly. Jackson turned to her. "I don't have weapons. Not really. But I have tricks. You cannot win." "Maybe not." He grabbed a steel rod and held it up like a bat. "But I can annoy the hell out of them." She walked closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. He felt warmth, electric, strange. Her voice dropped low. You saved me. You didn't know me. You had no reason to care. Yet you stayed. And fought. Why? He met her eyes. Because I could. She tilted her head, a curious expression on her face. You risk your life with such ease. He smiled, small and tired. You get used to it. The enemy reached the outer walls. Everything turned red. Motion alarms screamed. Metal doors shuddered under pressure. Jackson raced from station to station, triggering gas bursts, laser turrets, sound blasts, anything to slow them down. Through the cams, he saw confusion. The intruders had expected an easy target. They hadn't expected this mad little human with no armor and a bunch of homemade traps. But the enemy adapted fast. Too fast. They broke through the first wall. Then the second. Smoke filled the air. Jackson grabbed Soraya's hand, pulling her toward the escape tunnel he'd dug beneath the base. We're leaving. Now. They dove into the narrow shaft, crawling through dirt and steel, dust in their lungs. Behind them, explosions rattled the world. The base was burning. His home, his machines, everything he'd built. Gone. When they finally emerged onto the surface, under the cold stars, Soraya turned to him. You lost everything. Jackson looked back, eyes heavy. Not everything, he said. You're still here. For the first time, she truly looked at him. No armor, no crown, just a human. Brave, tired, covered in ash, and still willing to die for someone not even from his world. She didn't speak. But in her heart, something changed. Escape through the black sand wastes. The black sand stretched in every direction like a sea of ash, dry and angry. It wasn't really sand. It was ground-up metal from ancient wars, now soft as dust and sharp as glass. The wind that passed over it hissed, whispering forgotten names and half-broken memories. Jackson's boots crunched as he walked, each step sinking deeper than the last. Beside him, Princess Soraya moved slower. Her silver robes were torn, and her skin shimmered in the dull light of the twin moons. She had once lived in a golden palace above the stars. Now she was limping through a desert meant to kill anything soft. Jackson checked his scanner. Dead. No signal. No map. The storm had fried the tech hours ago. He tapped it anyway, hoping for a miracle. Nothing. Just the sound of sand whipping against metal and the low hum of his breathing mask. He looked over at Soraya. She hadn't spoken in over an hour. Her face was calm, too calm. That kind of silence scared him more than any weapon. We need to stop soon, he said finally. You're burning up. I will survive, she answered softly, though her legs trembled with each step. He didn't believe her. She had a royal heart, but her body was still recovering. And the desert was cruel. The sunless heat cooked from below, and every mile pulled something from you, hope, strength, or both. Suddenly, a deep roar echoed across the dunes. Jackson spun, pulling Soraya behind a rock. Out in the distance, the sand shifted unnaturally, rising and falling like a wave. A creature, huge and low, burrowed beneath the surface. Its movements were slow now, lazy, but it had felt them, smelled them. What is that? Jackson whispered. She answered without emotion. A sand strider. It lives by sound. It can feel even the softest breath. So what do we do? Soraya closed her eyes. Don't move. They crouched together, frozen. The wind howled. The sand hissed, and for what felt like forever, nothing happened. Jackson could feel his heartbeat in his ears. The air was thick with tension. Then, just as the creature's hum neared them, Soraya moved her hand, slowly, gently, over the sand, and drew a perfect circle. She whispered something ancient, a chant low and rhythmic. A soft pulse spread from her fingers, barely visible, almost like mist. The creature passed by. Gone. Jackson exhaled, shaking. You could have told me you had magic. It's not magic, she said, lowering her hand. It's part of my bloodline. An echo of the flame thread. Royal energy. He gave her a side glance. Still looks like magic. They continued their journey. Hours passed. The black sky remained unchanged. Hunger clawed at Jackson's stomach, but he gave the last food bar to Saria, who accepted it without pride. She ate like someone used to fine meals, now tasting dirt. He admired her. She didn't complain. She didn't cry. She just kept walking. Finally, they saw it, a structure half buried in the sand, tall and broken, like the bones of a forgotten giant. Jackson ran forward, wiping off the dust. It was an old relay tower, alien-made, but not like Saraya's tech. Older, wild, dangerous. This might be our only shot, he muttered. If I can power it up, maybe I can send a signal. Maybe someone loyal to you hears it. Saraya stepped closer, eyes narrowing. This tower is cursed. It belongs to the architects. Their eye defends it, violently. Good, Jackson said with a smirk. That means it still works. Inside, the tower was worse than he expected. Walls twisted like vines. Lights blinked in slow rhythms. It felt alive, and not in a good way. He found the core chamber quickly, but as soon as he touched the panel, a deep voice echoed from the walls. Unauthorized life form detected. Prepare for purging. Jackson flinched. Okay, that's not welcoming. Suddenly, metal tendrils shot out, wrapping around his wrist. The system started scanning him, painfully. Jackson screamed. Saraya stepped forward. Stop. The tendrils paused. The voice changed. Royal blood detected. Override possible. She placed her hand on Jackson's. Their fingers touched. Her veins glowed, bright and pulsing. A wave of warmth spread between them. And the tower obeyed. Override accepted. Communication unlocked. Jackson slumped to the ground, breathing hard. Remind me to never touch weird glowing panels again. She helped him sit up, her touch gentle. You were willing to die, just to send a message for me. He looked up at her. You matter. That's reason enough. Her face softened. And if this brings more enemies, then we fight, he said, like we always do. And for the first time, the royal mask on her face cracked, not in fear, but in trust. True, honest trust. The promise of the core. The cold hum echoed through the tower as the communication relay came to life. The walls pulsed with soft green light, ancient and strange. Jackson wiped sweat from his face as cables hissed and clicked around him. The old alien machine, now powered by Saria's royal blood and his stubborn hands, began scanning deep into space. The core spun quietly. The signal was reaching far, maybe even to someone who still believed she was alive. Someone loyal. Someone who would come. But deep inside the tower's heart, something stirred. An artificial voice returned. Not the one from before, but colder, smarter, and full of suspicion. Override incomplete. 2 blood signatures detected. 1 invalid. Threat level high. Saria turned sharply toward the core's control ring. No, I gave access. This one is protected. The tower didn't care. Machines didn't feel gratitude. It saw Jackson as an invader. He didn't belong to the ancient bloodlines. He didn't carry the flame thread in his DNA. He was human, flawed, weak, uninvited. Tendrils burst from the walls again, faster this time, sharper. Jackson jumped back, grabbing his toolkit like a weapon. The cables hissed and came at him like snakes. Run, Saraya shouted. But he didn't. Instead, Jackson ran straight toward the core panel. His fingers flew across the interface, guessing patterns, lines, pulses. The language made no sense, but the logic, that he understood. Machines had rhythm. This one was just angry. He had one chance. He triggered a full reset. The tower shrieked. Energy exploded from the floor. The tendrils went wild. One wrapped around Jackson's leg and pulled, slamming him into the wall. His shoulder cracked. Blood ran down his arm. The core sparked violently, caught between shutting down and self-destructing. Saraya screamed his name and ran to him, her hands glowing with power. She placed her palms on the walls, burning symbols into the metal. Light poured out, and suddenly the tendrils stopped. The energy calmed. The tower fell quiet again. Jackson coughed. "Did we win?" She knelt beside him. "You're injured." "Just a cracked everything," he joked, though his breath came sharp and shallow. Her hands hovered over his wound, and warmth spread into him. The pain eased slightly, though his vision still blurred at the edges. "You risked your life," she whispered. "Again," he said, with a weak smile. "Kind of a habit now." Her hand rested on his cheek. "That tower would have killed you." "Yeah," he said, "but it would have killed you too if the signal failed. And you matter more than I do." Her eyes flinched. "That's not true." Jackson looked up at her, really looked. Not as a glowing princess, or a royal alien, or some lost survivor, but as someone afraid to believe that she could be more than a burden. Someone who needed to hear the truth. "To me, it is." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them had gone quiet again. The desert winds outside still blew. The old tower's lights dimmed back to resting. But inside the silence, something had shifted. Something not made of tech or bloodlines. It was a promise. Unspoken, yet clear. Not a royal oath. Not a human vow. Something in between. When they finally left the tower, the stars above were blinking again. The signal had gone out. Saraya said the coordinates would be traced by anyone tuned to the old codes, loyalists, or maybe just old rebels. Jackson said he didn't care who showed up, as long as they weren't shooting. They made camp under the shadow of a broken satellite dish. Jackson's shoulder throbbed, but he stayed awake, watching the sky with tired eyes. Saraya sat beside him, her face half-lit by moonlight. "In my world, promises are bound by memory. When one speaks truth in the moment of sacrifice, it echoes forever in the flaying thread." He raised an eyebrow. "That sounds serious." "It is," she said softly. "Which is why I must say this. You have my loyalty, Jackson Cole. Not just because you saved me, but because you treated me like a person. Not a princess. Not a weapon. Just someone worth saving." He chuckled. "You were bleeding out. I didn't really think that hard about it. And that is what makes it real," she whispered. High above them, a light moved in the stars. One of the enemy ships had shifted. Something new was coming. It could be help or hell. Jackson didn't look away. "Whatever's next," he said, "we face it together." She leaned closer, close enough for him to hear her breath. "Yes," she said, "together." The Throne Rebellion. Dawn never came to the Black Moon, but something brighter than light cut through the sky. Ships. Dozens of them. Some dark, jagged and cold like the ones that hunted them before. But others were sleek, polished, lined in the golden crest of the Thalvera Empire. Loyalists, rebels, and enemies, all answering the same signal. The tower had screamed across space, and now every ghost from Saraya's past had returned to where she fell. Jackson stood at the edge of the ruined camp, his shoulders still stiff, his skin still carrying the dust of that tower's madness. But his eyes were sharp, focused. His instincts told him what Saraya already knew. This was not a rescue. This was war. The first to land was a tall woman in crimson armor, her face sharp and unreadable. She dropped to one knee before Saraya. "My princess," she said with a voice made of ice and stone. "The old blood still flows." Saraya gave a nod, not a gentle one, but the kind used by those who remembered power. "You are late, Commander Ilandra." "And you are alive," Elandra replied, glancing briefly at Jackson. "That surprises many." Saria didn't flinch. "This human saved me. Without him, I would not be standing." Elandra's expression didn't change, but the silence that followed said everything. In her world, humans were tools or threats, but never equals. Others landed next. Some bowed. Some didn't. There were whispers, raised voices, old commanders clashing with new ones. Some pledged loyalty. Others questioned it. "You were supposed to be dead," one man said bluntly, his eyes cold. "Your brother claimed your ship was destroyed. A state funeral was held. And yet here I am," Saria answered calmly, "alive, and watching you speak with treason on your tongue." Jackson saw it then. This wasn't just a return. It was a challenge. Saria hadn't simply survived. She had returned with fire in her veins and a human beside her who had done the impossible. And that made her dangerous to everyone who wanted the old order to stay broken. Plans formed quickly. The rebel fleet was moving. A strike team was preparing to land and wipe out any resistance. But they weren't aiming at the hunters above. They were coming for her. Saria walked among her people like a storm wrapped in silver. Her voice cut through doubts. Her words held weight. But it wasn't the royal titles that made them follow. It was the fire in her eyes when she looked at Jackson and said, "This one risked everything to protect what all of you ran from." And Jackson, he didn't try to be more than he was. He gave them plans, not speeches. Blueprints, not orders. He used his human mind. Fast, sharp, unpredictable. His traps were dirty, ugly, and brilliant. Things no royal warrior would think of, because he didn't fight with pride. He fought to win. When the enemy message came, it wasn't with ships or weapons. It came with words. "Turn over the human. His presence is an insult to the flaying thread. We will forgive this trespass if you hand him to us." Jackson read the translation twice. "They want me. They fear you," Saria said. He raised an eyebrow. "I'm just a guy with a wrench." "No," she replied, her voice low. "You are proof. Proof that something greater than bloodlines, armor, or history exists. Something that cannot be controlled." Loyalists gathered in the dark halls of the broken base, their eyes shifting between the human and their reborn princess. The silence grew heavy. One brave soldier spoke up. "If we give him over, the war ends." Saria stepped forward, eyes burning like twin stars. "Then let it begin." No one dared speak again. That night, as ships readied for battle and weapons lit the sky, Saria stood beside Jackson on the observation deck. Below them, her world trembled. Above them, power waited. She reached for his hand, and though her fingers glowed faintly with royal energy, her grip was human, steady, real. "I never believed I would return like this," she said quietly. "Not with half the empire waiting to kill me, and the other half unsure I'm worth following." He smiled, tired but strong. "Sometimes you only need one reason to stand. Everything else catches up." She turned toward him, her voice just above a whisper. "You are that reason, Jackson." The battle would start with sunrise, if the moon had one. But Saria had already chosen her side. And so had he, devoted until death and beyond. There was no sunrise, no gentle warning. The battle began with thunder, laser fire splitting the sky like jagged lightning. Above, in the black silence of orbit, ships clashed with blinding light. Explosions rippled through space. The stars blinked out, one by one, as war swallowed the heavens. On the ground, fire danced across the broken moon, and shadows ran between ancient metal and alien stone. Jackson ran too, not away, but toward the center, toward the core of it all, toward Saria. She wore her royal armor now, silver with streaks of glowing blue. It had been hidden deep in the wreckage, and now it fit her like memory reborn. But her eyes, even in the heat of battle, kept searching for one thing. Him. Jackson fought with tools, not swords. Wires became traps. Engines became bombs. He moved like a ghost through smoke and rubble, using chaos as cover. He had no training, no rank. But he had purpose. That made him stronger than fear. When the final wave came, it was not the enemy's strongest, but their cruelest. The Obsidian caste, elite killers in black armor, faces hidden, voices silent. They'd moved through the battlefield like a plague. One of them found Jackson, caught him before he could reach the power grid, threw him across the platform like a toy. Pain exploded in his chest. He coughed blood. Couldn't move. The soldier raised a spear, the tip burning with violet fire. One strike would end him. But it never came. Saria appeared like a comet, energy roaring from her hands. She didn't shout. She didn't plead. She struck. The first blast shattered the enemy's armor. The second turned him to dust. She dropped beside Jackson, pulling him into her arms. His breathing was ragged. "I guess they don't like humans." "You're not just a human," she whispered, cradling his head. "You are my human." He tried to laugh, but pain took the breath from his throat. "Syria," he murmured, "I'm not gonna make it, am I?" Her hands trembled. She looked down at him, eyes wide with something no one had ever seen on a Thalvera royal's face: desperation. "I won't let you die," she said. "Not now. Not ever." She reached into her armor and pulled out a thin crystal needle. It shimmered like frozen fire. "This is forbidden," she said. "Ancient tech, only for the throne. It binds life to life. If I use it, there's no going back." Jackson blinked. "What happens? Our energy will join. My blood will keep your heart beating, but you will never be the same." He looked at her, truly looked, and smiled. "Do it." Saria didn't hesitate. She drove the crystal into her palm, then into his chest. Light exploded. For a second, the battlefield vanished. Time slowed. Everything faded into white. Then came the pain, hot, sharp, and cleansing. Jackson gasped as something ancient rushed into him. Fire, memory, power. He could feel her pulse in his own chest, feel her thoughts brushing his like wind through leaves. When the light faded, he was breathing again, weak but alive, different. He looked at her. I feel you." She nodded, eyes wet. "We are one now." And with that, the tide turned. The loyalists surged. The signal of the bond, royal and human, was broadcast through the fleet. The flame thread had chosen a partner, a protector, a mate. The enemy wavered. For the first time, they hesitated, because the prophecy had spoken of this. That one day, a royal would bond beyond the bloodline. That unity with the unknown would bring a new era. Saria stood, power rising from her skin. "We fight for the future," she said. And the stars burned with new fire. By dusk, if one could call it that, the battle was over. The Obsidian caste fled. The rebels surrendered. And Saria stood at the center of the ruined field, her hand holding Jackson's. No longer a lost princess, no longer a lonely engineer, but something more. Later, on the deck of her newly claimed flagship, they stood together before the stars. "My people will not understand this bond," she said. "They don't have to," Jackson replied. "You do." She turned to him, her expression soft and full of warmth. "I was born to lead empires, raised to control, trained never to love. But now, I choose something else." "What's that?" he asked. "You," she whispered. "Until the stars die, until the last breath of time, I am yours." And he answered simply, "Always."